Hello and welcome back to the Seeing Better podcast. I'm your host, Shelby Nix, and I have a exciting podcast episode today on my morning routine. I have been fascinated with morning routines for years and went through different phases, some where I was somewhat obsessive about my morning routine, getting up in college, which is really when I started to form my morning routine, getting up super early and being a little bit aggressive about it, to paring it back and being super chill in the morning. And what I've come to terms with is that my morning routine will always fluctuate throughout the year. And that's a good thing. In the winter, it's going to look different than in the summer, obviously, because of the weather, but also because of some ways that our internal systems work. So, with Chinese medicine, there are different philosophies in how to move through the different seasons. I have a book on this and I found it to be interesting. I don't follow that to a T because I do think there are parts of our modern life that allow us to adapt, but I take different data and insights into my morning routine depending on what I'm going for. So, my main objective in my morning routine is for it to be consistent and also help me to feel energized throughout the day. So, a couple of different things allow me to do that, but instead of having a very long and rigid list of what I need to do in my morning routine, I've been able to find the most effective measures and amplify them. So, in other words, you'll be hearing this from me many, many more times to come. I found my 20% that works to maximize my 80% in my morning routine. And this is what it is. So, most days, and this is primarily during the week when I am going to work or if I'm working from home, and that is that I wake up at 6:30 a.m. I use the sleep and awake function on the iPhone. So, I put my wake time to about 6:30 and I'm able to wake up because the sun is mostly out by that point and I have blinds that allow the sunlight to come in. And usually I feel just fine. I get up and I'm going, and this has helped me feel more energized. There was times where I slept more or less and didn't always feel that way, but I've been able to find what works for me so I don't dread waking up in the morning. I also go to bed around 9:30 at night, which helps me get a good 8 to 9 hours in, and I wake up feeling very well rested. So the first thing that I do is, transparently, I do look at my phone, but I try not to look at other people's priorities, so looking at social media or email or things like that. But I usually put on a podcast if I'm in the mood, or music depending on what the day calls for. But I usually listen to an uplifting podcast or something that might make me laugh so I can start the day on the right foot, because oftentimes we wake up and immediately have the demons in our head saying things like, why not just go back to bed? This day is going to be a bad day. I have this, and that to do, or whatever it may be. And I really want to cut that with a knife and just start things off on the right foot. So I'm able to do that by listening to podcasts and other resources that help me get there. I get out of bed and I pretty much immediately go to the bathroom and I brush my teeth, I floss, and I also tongue scrape. I am a huge fan of tongue scraping. Once you tongue scrape, you really can't go back. I mean, you just feel so much different and you find that there is so much bacteria on your tongue and sometimes even food, which is really disgusting, but you feel nice and clean when you get ready for the day. After I come out of the bathroom, I usually make my bed. I always make my bed. If I don't, honestly, I just feel off throughout the whole day. If you're not somebody who currently makes their bed, this might sound odd to you. But once you start making your bed, it's like tongue scraping. You just will never not do it any other way after that. Once I make my bed, I feel like I've done something. Things are in order, and I like to keep my apartment nice and tidy. So, this might also involve unloading the dishwasher or taking out the trash, depending on what the day looks like. From here, I put on my gym clothes. So, I do work out every morning, and it looks different depending on what I'm doing that day. So, I strength train 5 days a week, but I also, no matter what, go out for a walk in the morning. So I have my gym clothes on for whatever the day entails, and they're usually already laid out. So I know what I'm going to wear and it takes the guesswork out of it. So I put on my clothes and I'm ready to go, and I head over about 10 or so yards over to my apartment gym. Luckily, I have an apartment gym where I live, so it doesn't require me to have a gym membership and I don't have to go anywhere. It has made it so seamless for me to be able to work out and has mitigated any issues that can arise from other modalities, either going to a fitness class or going to a gym or relying on other things that may fall through. So I go over to my apartment gym where usually there's no one there at 6:45 a.m. if I'm lucky. Sometimes there's other people that come in a little bit later, but for the most part, I'm there by myself, which is very relaxing. I go in and I usually keep the lights off because I just can't be bothered with the overhead lighting at that time of day. And that's where I do my strength training. So I follow Evlo Fitness's protocol and app, and that requires me to strength train 5 days a week. And I found this to be the most effective for me. I've been able to pare back my fitness routine by a lot of time and has been the most effective in building muscle. So after I work out, which is generally about 35 minutes, so it's a 5-minute warm up or mobility drills, 25 minutes of actual muscle building, and then another 5 minutes of cool down, I'm back and ready to make my smoothie in the morning. If you know me, you know I drink a smoothie in the morning. My family has made fun of me for years for this, but it's just what keeps me consistent. In the morning, I'm not always craving something in particular, so I don't need eggs or pancakes or oatmeal or anything special. I just need something to satiate me because there are times where I am hungry, but not necessarily craving a whole lot. So I come back and I make my Fab4 smoothie. My Fab4 smoothie is inspired by Kelly LeVeque, who is a functional nutritionist, and she is the creator of the Fab4 smoothie. But I've tailored it for my own needs and I just replicate it every day. It's the most effective for me. I know what I'm going to be having and I know it's going to be healthy. So generally, I make healthier choices throughout the day because I've started it off on the right foot. And beyond that, my blood sugar is stable at least until around noon. So what my Fab4 smoothie entails is as follows: a cup or so of spinach, a cup or so of protein powder, a quarter cup of mixed berries, and I like to get my organic mixed berry mix from Trader Joe's, 2 tablespoons of flax seeds for fiber. What else? Almond butter, so about a tablespoon of almond butter, water. I just use water, and I found that it's tastes more or less the same, and I'm fine with it. It saves money and also saves calories and whatnot. And then I also put cinnamon in it as well for extra blood sugar balance. So the Fab4 stands for protein, fat, fiber, and greens. So I get my protein, fat, fiber, and greens in there and am taken care of at least until lunchtime. So it's what allows me to be very energized in the morning and effective with whatever it is I have to do that day. After this, I take my smoothie for a walk. So generally, I'll put it in a to-go cup and I will take a 15 to 30-minute walk outside and listen to some type of positive content. Sometimes I'm in the mood for a podcast. Sometimes I'm in the mood for music. So I go ahead and get my body moving, get outside. Andrew Huberman is a big fan of getting light in the eyes early in the day, and that is part of the reason why I do this, but it also just puts me in a really good mood and gets my body moving because there's a good chance that I might be sitting for the rest of the day, considering I do have a desk job. So I take my smoothie on a walk, I get some light out and hopefully some sunshine. I live right on the beach, so I am very lucky in saying this, but I get to do this pretty much every day. There are times where it's raining, and in that case, I will go on the treadmill and put it on an incline. But for the very most part, I am able to go on the walk and clear my head this way, and it really does make a difference. After this, I'll come back to my apartment and take a shower, usually very quick. I don't wash my hair in the morning, but I'll sometimes flash cold water. If you'd like to do some sort of hot-cold contrast, this would be the time. I know that there are different ideologies out there, but if you want to see the benefits of cold exposure, maybe you could turn it down to about 2.5 minutes each day to cold temperatures below about 60 degrees, and you'll receive those benefits of the cold exposure. I'd recommend you go and listen to the cold exposure episode that Andrew Huberman did on his podcast, and he can tell you all about that. But from what I know from his expertise, it only takes about 2.5 minutes per day to get those effects. And you can do it in the shower if you'd like, if that's what you have access to. If you have a cold plunge, even better, definitely do that. I usually don't wash my face in the morning. I thought this would be interesting to talk about because I used to cleanse my face in the morning, but I decided not to. At some point, I was very acne prone and wanted to mitigate any, clogging of pores or anything like that. So I actually don't wash my face in the morning. I just splash it with cold water and then I put on my makeup and clothes and hair. By this point, I am fully energized and ready for the day. So I try to put on something that makes me feel great and that I'm excited about. So usually, all the while, I'm listening to, again, some type of podcast or music that's getting me in the right mood and the right frame of mind. I then pack a healthy lunch. So this looks different every day, but usually it's the leftovers. I have committed to packing my lunch every single day when I go to the office, which is 3 days a week. And it saves me so much money and allows me to eat healthfully, even when there are other temptations happening like donuts, which does happen quite a lot. But I'll go ahead and pack my lunch, which I don't even know how much money that's saving me. It's probably in the hundreds every year because you can't really get by without spending at least $15 on a lunch pretty much anywhere. And oftentimes they are not always very healthy either. So by this point, it's probably about 8:30, depending on the day, and I drive to work. My work commute is about 25 minutes. And again, I'm usually listening to that podcast, so I'm in a great mood. I'm thinking about who I want to be that day and what kind of mindset I want to bring to the office. And I've taken care of myself so then I can take care of other things and other people throughout the day. I also bring my 40-ounce Stanley with me. So I usually have drank at least 40 ounce of Stanley by that point. So I'm already hydrated because I find during the day at the office, I become less hydrated because I'm not always drinking my water. So I try to get it in early. So I know that I'm hydrating, and then I try to do on the way back from work as well. By this point, let's call it 8:30-ish, 8:45. I get to the office and I grab my matcha. And so I'll get an iced matcha with almond milk. And I tried to do regular milk earlier last year, but it just didn't do right with my skin. And I was breaking out. So I decided to go back to almond milk, but I swapped out the honey for just plain unsweetened matcha. And not going to lie, sometimes at certain places that can taste like complete dirt. But luckily with the almond milk at work, it seems to be just fine for me and it balances my blood sugar. I'll also put a little bit of cinnamon on top to extend that blood sugar range as well if I can. And by that point, I'm ready to go. So that's about 8:45. And at that point, I try to bring some intentionality into my day before I get into all the things that everyone needs from me and all of the output that I need to produce. So I do a small and short journaling practice to get into it. So I modeled this off of Lauren Bostic from the Skinny Confidential, but she has a format of how she likes to format her day. And that is writing out what podcast you want to listen to, what book you want to read, what workout you want to do, what music you want to listen to, 3 things that you're grateful for, sending love to someone, how you want to feel, how you want to receive love by today. I added that one. That's my own spin. And the big 3. And the big 3, I should explain. The big 3 are the 3 tasks that if that's the only thing that you get done, that you would be maximizing your potential for the day. So let me walk you through an example of what that would look like. So for today, the podcast would be, let's just say the Toast, because usually I'm listening to the Toast, or the Skinny Confidential. Book, I'm currently reading Golden Girl by Elin Hilderbrand. If you know, you know. Workout, I did my Evlo workout today, which was already laid out for me, so I didn't have to do any guesswork, and then a 30-minute walk to go get matcha. Music, I was listening to some Shania Twain because why not? Grateful, 3 things I'm grateful for. That should be obvious, but again, holding that day in a standard where you're feeling grateful off the bat, sending love to whomever you'd like. Maybe it's your future self, maybe it's your past self, how you want to feel. Hopefully, you want to feel present, energized, lively, inspiring, whatever the case may be. How you're receiving love. So maybe you are accepting compliments and not making any excuses for it. Maybe you are looking other people in the eye. Maybe you are asking more questions. Whatever the case may be, I like that as well, because not only are you sending love out to others, but you're also receiving it yourself. And then the big three. The big three is the most impactful in my mind. I do know gratitude is very important, but I find that the big three helps me stay in line with what the absolute priorities are for that day. So the big three, let's just take today, for example. Number one was to record my podcast episodes and publish the one for today, to unload the dishwasher, because that's always important, and to charge my car. Luckily today I didn't have too much on my plate, but this could look very different if I were in a really work heavy day. And once that is done, it's about 9 a.m. I'm done with my morning routine and I'm ready to get into it for the day. I faced a period of time in 2020 when I was working from home, newly graduated, living with my parents, and I found myself just getting right into work off the bat, and I was never more stressed than I was in that period of time for obvious reasons, and I think that a lot of us were there, but I'm so proud of how I've been able to build in these practices because I've been better for it for myself, but also for the people around me. And I also want to demystify the morning routine, because the morning routine is very popular online, but there are so many misconceptions. Sometimes there's an air of wanting to make it look very beautiful or very Instagram or TikTok appropriate, and that's really not the point. I also want to make sure that it's clear that the morning routine is not going to look the same every day. In fact, it's going to look a little bit different every day, and that's just fine. It's not supposed to look exactly the same. While I do many of the same tasks, sometimes I'm doing it in a slightly different way. Maybe I'm listening to a podcast instead of music, or vice versa. Maybe I go on a walk inside instead of outside if it's raining. I make those adjustments and I am not frustrated by them. I just simply go with what is. And it's allowed me to have more ease throughout my day. There were times where, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I was very dogmatic and super restrictive and didn't feel good. I was waking up far too early. I was raising my cortisol. I would be going to spin classes, getting stressed to be there, and the list goes on and on. But this really works for me. It's effective, and it also allows me to have some push and some pull in the morning. So it's not all masculine, it's not all feminine. It's actually a balance of both. I'm excited to see where this takes me in the next couple of months. As it is right now, 2/18, so it's February 18th. It's basically the coldest part of the year, so this is going to likely look different in a couple of months, so maybe I'll do an updated one for spring and summer. But I hope this gave you a little bit of inspiration and some comfort to know that if you're not in the place where you have an effective morning routine, you can get there, and that everyone's is adapted to their own personal needs. There is no one way to do this. Just because somebody wakes up and meditates for 1 hour doesn't mean that that's the way you need to do it. And as a matter of fact, I'll touch on that too, because that's oftentimes one of the key cornerstones of a morning routine. And I do want to touch on that. So I used to be a little bit more prescriptive about how I was meditating in the morning, but I've actually found that I prefer to meditate at night after I come back from work and before I go to bed. I find that that's when I'm really able to relax. And doesn't mean that I don't fit in a meditation in the morning here or there, but I find that my intentionality and mindfulness comes through other modalities at this time. So I take 5 minutes at the end of the workout classes that I do through Evlo, and they do a guided Shavasana. I listen to podcasts that put me in the right mind frame. I do the journaling, which allows me to find what I'm grateful for. So it doesn't have to look like one way. It does not have to look like you sitting cross-legged, listening to your own thoughts in your head, although it could, and that's great too. All right. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. If you can like and subscribe, that's going to help greatly with the growth of this podcast. And if it helps you, then hopefully it'll help a friend. So please share it with a friend as well. And I will see you on the next one. And until then, I hope you'll be seeing better. Bye.